Well, hi folks, and this is Dan Soviet again with another Chub Club bonus video. And today we're going to be talking about energy. So what the heck is energy and what's that got to do with Chub Club? Well, from a physics point of view, we would say that energy is the quantitative property required to move or heat an object. And in biological terms, energy kind of relates to the strength and vitality required to sustain either physical or mental activity. And we normally use the terminology or the idea of calories. So what that means is in anything I eat or drink, there is going to be a component of energy, a calorific value, if you like, that is going to fuel me. Because essentially what we're saying is that we are biological machines. We are little engines that require fuel. Now what's great about the human body is we've got three energy sources: proteins, carbohydrates and fat. Now protein, we're not going to worry about too much today because using protein as an energy source is kind of like a last resort thing. So in our Eat Well plan, we talked about that the other day, we were talking about having protein in our diet. And what we need is about 1 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilo. So if you weighed 100 kilograms, you would want whatever 100 kilograms is converted into grams, so 100 grams, but times by about 1.4, 1.6. It's a little bit varied, it depends on you as an individual and your activity level. So if you want more specifics on that, please get in touch. Okay, but using protein as an energy source is not the most best use of protein. Okay, proteins are designed to help get us stronger, and they essentially build, repair and grow our muscles. Okay, so we're going to kind of park that. What we are interested in are carbohydrates, which is essentially a sugar, and fat. Now, where the carbohydrates live in our body? Well, they kind of float around. They do store in our muscles, around our liver, there's a lot of them, but they kind of get used up pretty quick. So then we have to rely on other energy sources, i.e. fat, to help produce the energy. Oh, I'm going on a little bit too quick here. Now, let's take it back. So we're going to focus on carbohydrates and fats as our two energy supplies. So it's kind of like, imagine that your body is sort of like a hybrid car that's fueled on electricity, and regular petrol, gasoline, whatever you want to call it. So when you're zipping around town, you're going to be running on that electric most of the time. And then when you go for a longer journey or a prolonged journey, you then start to utilize that gasoline. Well, it's sort of the same with your body. Our primary energy source is carbohydrates. That's like the electric and hybrid car. So every time you eat, you ingest carbohydrates, and then they are in your carbohydrate stores. So they're stored in the muscle. They're not muscle, but they're stored in the muscle. They're in the liver. It's not the liver, but they're stored in the liver, and they're kind of floating around ready to get to wherever is needed. So when you first start getting active, and I don't necessarily mean exercise, but exercise is a good example, you start to use up or utilize those carbohydrate stores. And then, because they are stored in your muscles, because they're stored in the liver, they get utilized first. And then they run out relatively quickly. So what you do, you convert into hitting those fat cells. And the fat, in a funny kind of way, breaks down, releases energy, which helps fuel or refuel your body. So that's why, if you look back at our Eat Well plate, carbohydrate, especially starchy or complex carbohydrates, figures quite highly on that, because that's your primary energy source. So the great flaw with any any eating plan that has a reduced carbohydrate intake means that your body doesn't feel energized enough, and that affects your performance. And in essence, what you've got to do is then you've got to convert other stuff, like fat, proteins maybe, into carbohydrates. So you're kind of going a long-winded process to get that. It makes a lot more sense to keep those energy stores full by having a carbohydrate diet. Now, how much do we have? We've identified how much by looking at your well plate. So you know, if you're eating a loaf of bread a day, that's probably too much in regards to that sort of carbohydrate source or store. So we need to make a few tweaks. Does that make sense? So fat, if we talk about fat for a second, is a hugely energetic system. 1 gram of fat gives you probably 3 or 4 times the amount of energy that a gram of carbohydrate would. So it's a great energy source. However, it's not easily accessible because we are quite often working out in a zone that's going to require the carbohydrate to fire up first. Okay, so there are little tricks we can do, and we'll talk about that in another video, which is going to be about the difference between high intensity training, medium intensity training and low intensity training, which is the best for fat burning and overall calorific consumption. So just as a little recap today, energy, we need it, okay? The body is a machine, it requires fuel. We have to be sensible with what fuel we choose. Okay, if you went to the petrol station to fill your car up, you wouldn't put the wrong fuel in. I'm not saying you put the most expensive fuel in, but you would put the right fuel in. And the right fuel for the human body is a carbohydrate, protein and fat mixture. What mixture? Look at your eat well plate, it'll tell you what kind of proportions we want and why it's important that we do have those carbohydrates, because we've got to fuel the machine. Obviously, the simple sugars or the simple carbohydrates, which is all your sweets and your sugary stuff, is a negative. That might give you that quick boost, but then it's going to give you a decline afterwards. So be sensible, being healthy. There was one other thing I was going to talk about, and that's alcohol. We mentioned in the previous video about staying away from alcohol. Well, why? Well, I'm not going to preach about it. I'm not going to go about it. From a purely biological point of view, alcohol is a useless fourth nutrient. What? You can't use it. Okay, you cannot utilize alcohol as an energy source. So what happens is that alcohol turns to fat. Boom, that's it. And then it gets stored. And where does it get stored? It gets stored in all the places we don't want it. Around the middle. Okay, around those internal organs. It's a great proponent of raising your visceral fat. So, coming back to the start, energy. We've got to fuel the machine. If you are playing around with your eating plan at the minute, and you're training loads, because getting out and being active is great, and it is great, but you're feeling fatigued, it might be because you've not got a good balance on your energy income. So take a little look at it, review it, and again, any questions, any comments, any queries, don't be shy, grab either myself, Lisa, via the electronic system, or meet us in the real world for a chat. I'm always welcome. So today's video is about energy. Hopefully you found it interesting, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Bye.